Welcome to our deep dive today into 101 Zen Stories. And we're going to be looking at these ancient tales and how they can be applied to our modern lives. Feels like we're always just running on a hamster wheel, caught up in the daily grind. And I think maybe these stories can offer us a fresh perspective.
Yeah, that's a great point. These stories, though centuries old, offer timeless insights into, human nature, mindfulness, and the search for meaning. They're like little roadmaps for navigating, the complexities of life.
Yeah, and I think they're especially relevant now in a world of just constant distractions and information overload. We need a moment to just pause, reflect, and reconnect with our inner selves.
Absolutely. And I think these stories, they provide that space for reflection. They invite us to slow down and observe our thoughts and feelings and approach challenges with a sense of calm and clarity.
So why don't we start with a story called A Cup of Tea? It's simple but packed with meaning. It's about this university professor who visits a Zen master to learn about Zen, but his mind is so full of his own ideas that he just can't absorb anything new.
Right. So the Zen master, Nanin, uses the act of serving tea to illustrate this point. He keeps pouring even after the cup is full, causing the tea to spill over.
Oh,
And then when the professor protests, Nanin says, like this cup, you are full of your own opinions and speculations. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty your cup?
it's such a powerful metaphor for how we often approach life.
Yeah.
You know, we cling to our own beliefs and perspectives, leaving no room for new ideas or experiences.
hmm
It's like we're walking around with these overflowing cups, spilling our opinions everywhere without really listening to others.
Yeah, exactly. Zen encourages us to approach situations with an empty cup, a beginner's mind, ready to learn and grow. It's about letting go of our preconceived notions and being open to new possibilities. Think about it. How often do we go into conversations with our minds already made up?
Oh, yeah.
We're so busy trying to prove our point that we miss the opportunity to truly connect with the other person and understand their perspective.
That happens to me all the time. I get so caught up in being right that I forget to listen. It's like my cup is so full of my own thoughts that I can't even see what's in front of me. I need to work on emptying that cup a bit more often.
We all do. It's a practice, a conscious effort to let go of our attachments and approach each moment with fresh eyes. And it's not just about conversations, it applies to everything we do, whether we're at work, in relationships, or simply enjoying a cup of tea. That attitude of openness can make a world of difference.
Let's move on to another story that highlights this idea of openness and approaching life with a beginner's mind, and that is Finding a Diamond on a Muddy Road. This one is about a gambler named Munan who has a chance encounter with a Zen master named Gudo.
Right. Munan is on his way to Ito when he gets caught in a downpour and ends up staying at the same farmhouse as Gudo. And his wife, who's concerned about his gambling habit, tells Gudo about Munan's struggles. And Gudo, instead of lecturing Munan, decides to connect with him on a human level. He buys wine, and food sits with Munan as he drinks and even spends the night meditating beside him.
It's such an unexpected approach.
Yeah.
You would think a Zen master would just disapprove of gambling and drinking, but Gudo seems to understand that sometimes people need to go through their own experiences to learn and grow.
Exactly. And by meeting Munan where he was at, Gudo created a space for transformation. And so when Munan woke up the next morning, ashamed to find himself next to the emperor's teacher, Gudo seized the opportunity to teach him about the impermanence of life and the importance of using his time wisely. This encounter became a turning point for Munan. He decided to follow Gudo and eventually became his successor.
Wow. It's incredible how a seemingly negative experience, a night of drinking, could lead to such a profound transformation. It reminds us that even in the midst of our messy, unpredictable lives, there's always potential for growth and awakening. Sometimes those negative experiences are the very things that push us toward a new path.
Absolutely. Zen reminds us to pay attention to the present moment for every encounter, even those that seem unpleasant, holds the potential for learning and transformation. We just need to be open to seeing things from a different perspective.
This story makes me think about all the times I've judged people or situations without really understanding them. Maybe if I approach those situations with a bit more curiosity and openness, I'd see the diamonds hidden in the mud.
It's a valuable lesson for all of us. We tend to categorize things as good or bad, but life is much more nuanced than that. There's often wisdom to be found in the unexpected, the messy, and the seemingly mundane.
Speaking of finding wisdom in unexpected places, let's delve into the story of The Moon Cannot Be Stolen. This one features the Zen master Ryoken, known for his simple and unconventional lifestyle. He lived in a small hut, detached from material possessions.
Yeah, one night a thief breaks into Ryoken's hut but finds nothing worth stealing. And Ryoken catches the thief, but instead of getting angry or punishing him, he offers him his clothes as a gift. The thief is bewildered, takes the clothes, and flees. Ryoken sits naked watching the moon and says, "Poor fellow, I wish I could give him this beautiful moon."
That is just a beautiful and profound response. It speaks volumes about Ryoken's level of detachment and compassion. He's not attached to material possessions, and he even extends kindness to someone who's trying to steal from him.
This story challenges us to examine our own attachments. In a culture that often equates happiness with acquiring more, Ryoken's story invites us to question that equation. What are we clinging to that might be preventing us from experiencing true peace and happiness?
In our busy lives, it's easy to get caught up in the pursuit of more money, more possessions, more recognition. We forget that true contentment comes from within, from a sense of peace and connection that transcends material things.
Exactly. Ryoken's story reminds us that true wealth lies in our ability to appreciate the simple things, to find joy in the present moment, and to let go of our attachments to things that ultimately don't matter.
It's a powerful reminder to simplify our lives, to focus on what truly matters, and to cultivate a sense of gratitude for what we already have. Instead of constantly chasing after something more, maybe we can find contentment right here, right now.
That's the essence of Zen, finding peace and fulfillment in the present moment, regardless of our circumstances. And these stories offer us guidance on how to cultivate that inner peace.
This leads us to another important theme, facing life and death with equanimity. There are a couple of stories that address this head-on, the last poem of Hushin and the story of Tokufu.
In the first story, the Zen master Hoshin recounts a tale about another master, Tokufu, who predicts his own death and uses it as a teaching moment for his students.
Tokufu announces that he won't be alive the following year, prompting his students to treat him with extra care during his final days. Then, on New Year's Eve, he tells them he'll pass away the next afternoon when the snow stops. Now, there's no snow at the time, but as fate would have it, snow begins to fall at midnight. The next day, Tokufu is found to have passed away peacefully in the meditation hall. It's almost like he orchestrated his own departure.
And then Hoshin, after sharing this story, claims he too can predict his own death and will demonstrate it in 7 days. Of course, his students are skeptical, but 7 days later, Hoshin gathers them and dictates his final poem. "I came from brilliancy and returned to brilliancy. What is this?"
The poem is one line short of the traditional four-line format, and so a student points this out. Hoshin, in a dramatic fashion, lets out a powerful shout, "Ka!" and passes away. It's an incredible story, almost too good to be true.
Whether entirely factual or embellished for dramatic effect, the story highlights a core principle in Zen philosophy: the acceptance of impermanence.
It's a concept that can be difficult to grasp, especially in a culture that often denies or fears death. We're so focused on extending our lives and clinging to youth that we forget to embrace the natural cycle of life and death.
Exactly. Zen encourages us to view death not as an end, but as a natural part of life's cycle. And that acceptance of impermanence of the transient nature of life can actually help us live more fully in the present. If we truly grasp that each moment is precious, it can fuel our appreciation for life itself.
It's a powerful shift in perspective. Instead of fearing death, we can embrace the present moment and live each day with intention and gratitude. It's like knowing that our time is limited can inspire us to make the most of each day.
Precisely. And that brings us to another key aspect of Zen practice: the use of koans. These are riddles or paradoxical statements that are designed to challenge our usual way of thinking and provoke a shift in consciousness.
Koans sound a bit intimidating. They're not like ordinary riddles with straightforward answers, right?
Right. Koans aren't meant to be solved through logic or reasoning. They're more like prompts for contemplation, designed to push us beyond the limitations of our intellectual minds and lead us to a more direct, intuitive understanding.
Do you have an example from the collection that illustrates this?
Absolutely. The story, The Sound of One Hand, is a classic example. It's about a young boy named Toyo who wants to learn Zen from the master Mukurai. Mukurai gives Toyo a koan to ponder. "You can hear the sound of 2 hands when they clap together. Now show me the sound of 1 hand."
Okay, that's a real head-scratcher. How can you have the sound of one hand clapping? It seems impossible.
Exactly, and that's the point. The koan is meant to challenge our usual way of thinking, to break us out of our conceptual boxes. Toyo struggles with this koan for a long time. He tries imitating various sounds, but Mukurai rejects them all.
So how does Toyo eventually solve the koan?
Well, he enters a state of deep meditation and transcends all sounds, reaching what he calls the soundless sound. Toya realizes that the sound of one hand isn't a literal sound, but rather an experience of pure awareness beyond conceptual thought.
That's pretty profound, especially for a young boy. It seems like koans are designed to lead us to those aha moments, those flashes of insight that come through direct experience rather than intellectual analysis.
You got it. Think about it. Have you ever had a moment of sudden understanding or realization that just clicked into place? Maybe it came during a walk in nature, a conversation with a friend, or even a moment of quiet reflection.
Definitely. Sometimes the most profound insights come out of nowhere, like a flash of inspiration. It's not something you can force or figure out through logic.
Exactly. And those are the moments that Zen encourages us to cultivate. It's about engaging with the world through our senses, being fully present in each moment, and letting go of our need to overanalyze everything.
That reminds me of another story from the collection, Joshu's Zen. It's about a student who asks Joshu, "If I haven't anything in my mind, what shall I do?" And Joshu replies, "Throw it out." The student confused says, "But if I haven't anything, how can I throw it out?"
And Joshu simply replies, well, then carry it out. It's a classic Zen response, seemingly nonsensical, yet pointing to a deeper truth.
It's like he's saying, stop trying to grasp emptiness with your mind. Just experience it directly. It's about letting go of those mental gymnastics and surrendering to the present moment.
Exactly. It's about trusting our direct experience, our intuition, and our inner wisdom.
This idea of letting go of non-attachment seems to connect to another theme we touched on earlier, accepting impermanence.
You're right. They're intertwined. Letting go of our attachments to things, ideas, and even our sense of self is essential to embracing the ever-changing nature of reality.
The story of Shunkai, is a powerful example of how societal norms and personal desires often clash with the pursuit of enlightenment.
Shunkai is a remarkable woman. Despite facing rejection and hardship, she remains true to her pursuit of Zen. It's a reminder that the path to enlightenment isn't always easy or conventional, but it can lead to profound transformation. And sometimes it requires us to let go of expectations and embrace a path that might not be understood or accepted by others.
Let's move on to another story that speaks to this idea of letting go of expectations. Real prosperity. It's about a wealthy man who asks the Zen master Sengai to write something for the continued prosperity of his family. I bet he was expecting a message filled with good fortune and long life.
You'd think so, right? But Sengai instead writes, father dies, son dies, grandson dies.
Wow, that's not exactly what you'd expect to see hanging on your wall. It seems a bit harsh at first glance.
It's definitely not your typical message of prosperity. But Sengai explains his reasoning beautifully. He points out that the natural order of life is for generations to pass away. If the family follows this natural progression without experiencing untimely loss, that is true prosperity.
It's a stark reminder of the impermanence of life and the inevitability of death. But within that, there's a sense of acceptance and even peace. It's like he's saying, don't cling to the illusion of permanence. Embrace the natural flow of life with all its joys and sorrows.
Exactly. It's a powerful invitation to redefine what we consider prosperity. Is it about accumulating wealth and status? Or is it about appreciating the natural flow of life with all its beauty and fragility?
It's a question we all need to ask ourselves. In our fast-paced, achievement-oriented culture, it's easy to get caught up in the pursuit of external success. We forget to savor the simple moments, to appreciate the people in our lives, and to find joy in the everyday miracles that surround us.
Sengai's message encourages us to shift our focus from accumulating more to appreciating what we already have. It's about cultivating gratitude for the present moment, for the precious gift of life itself.
You know, it's fascinating how these stories, though centuries old, still speak to us today. They offer timeless wisdom that can help us navigate the complexities of modern life. They remind us to slow down, to be present, to let go of our attachments, and to find peace within ourselves.
That's the power of Zen. It strips away the layers of cultural conditioning and speaks directly to the heart of the human experience. It's about awakening to the present moment, finding peace within ourselves, and living with intention and compassion.
Speaking of living with intention and compassion, the story of Tesui, Zen in a beggar's life, who chose to live under a bridge with beggars rather than in the comfort of a temple, shows that Zen isn't about outward appearances or social status. It's about inner transformation.
Indeed, Tosui's former disciple tries to emulate his lifestyle but finds himself unable to eat the food left behind by a deceased beggar. Tosui tells him, "I have said you could not do as I. Get out of here and do not bother me again." It highlights the importance of authenticity in our spiritual practice.
It's a reminder that true Zen practice isn't about mimicking someone else's life or adhering to rigid rules. It's about finding your own authentic path to enlightenment, a path that aligns with your values and your unique way of being in the world.
It's about integrating Zen principles into your daily life, whatever that life may look like. It's about bringing that mindfulness, that compassion, that sense of presence into every moment, every interaction, every experience.
It's about being fully alive, fully engaged, and fully present in the here and now.
Beautifully said. And remember, you don't have to become a monk or live in a monastery to experience the transformative power of Zen. It's available to us all right here, right now, in the midst of our everyday lives.
Welcome back to our deep dive into 101 Zen Stories. It's been really fascinating to see how these ancient tales can offer us guidance and inspiration for navigating the challenges of modern life.
Yeah, and it's really amazing how these stories, though rooted in a different time and culture, still resonate so deeply with us today. They tap into something universal about the human experience, our search for meaning, our longing for peace, and our desire to live a more fulfilling life.
One thing that's really struck me is how often these stories highlight the importance of direct experience over intellectual understanding. It's not about memorizing doctrines or engaging in endless philosophical debates. It's about experiencing truth directly through our senses, through our intuition, through our hearts.
Exactly. Zen emphasizes direct intuitive knowing, often symbolized by the aha moment, that sudden flash of insight that can't be achieved through logic alone. It's about moving beyond the limitations of our thinking minds and accessing a deeper level of wisdom.
Right, and that brings us back to the concept of koans. They're not meant to be solved like riddles. They're more like prompts for contemplation designed to jolt us out of our habitual ways of thinking and open us up to new possibilities.
Yeah, the story of Joshu's Zen perfectly illustrates this. Remember, a student asks Joshu, "If I haven't anything in my mind, what shall I do?" And Joshu replies, "Throw it out." The student, perplexed, asks, "But if I haven't anything, how can I throw it out?"
Right, it's like a circular conversation that seems to make no sense.
Exactly, and that's the brilliance of it. Joshu simply replies, "Well, then carry it out." It's a classic Zen response, seemingly nonsensical, yet pointing to a deeper truth.
It's like he's saying, stop getting caught up in the intellectual trap of trying to define or grasp nothingness. Just experience it directly.
Precisely. It's about letting go of our conceptual frameworks and opening ourselves up to a more direct, intuitive way of knowing. It's about trusting our experience rather than getting lost in our thoughts.
Another story that emphasizes the power of direct experience is The Dead Man's Answer. It's about a student, Mamiya, who's struggling to understand the sound of one hand. His teacher tells him he's too attached to worldly things, and that it would be better if he died to solve the problem.
So the next time Mamiya appears before his teacher, he pretends to be dead. The teacher, playing along, asks, "But how about that sound?" Mamiya, still dead, replies, "I haven't solved that yet."
It's such a hilarious image, a student playing dead to try to understand a Zen koan.
It is. And the teacher responds with a playful yet profound lesson. He says, "Dead men do not speak. Get out." It's a reminder that true Zen practice isn't about intellectual posturing or pretending to have all the answers. It's about embodying the practice, living it fully, and being willing to embrace the unknown.
It's about being present, being authentic, and being open to the mysteries of life.
Exactly. And that brings us to another important theme that runs through many of these stories. The idea of finding enlightenment in the midst of everyday life. It's not about escaping to a monastery or living a life of seclusion. It's about integrating Zen principles into the fabric of our daily lives.
Yeah, the story of Tosui, who chooses to live among beggars rather than in the comfort of a temple, is a powerful example of this. He shows that Zen isn't about outward appearances or social status. It's about inner transformation, about finding peace and contentment regardless of our circumstances.
Indeed. And Tosui's former disciple tries to emulate his lifestyle but finds himself unable to eat the food left behind by a deceased beggar. Tosui tells him, "I have said you could not do as I. Get out of here and do not bother me again." It's a reminder that true Zen practice isn't about mimicking someone else's life. It's about finding your own authentic path to enlightenment.
It's about integrating those principles of mindfulness, compassion, and non-attachment into our everyday actions, our relationships, and our interactions with the world.
Absolutely. And it's about recognizing that every moment, every experience holds the potential for awakening. Whether we're washing dishes, commuting to work, or having a conversation with a loved one, we can bring that Zen awareness to each activity.
It's about finding the sacred in the ordinary, the extraordinary in the mundane.
You've captured it perfectly. And as we conclude our deep dive into 101 Zen stories, we invite you, our listeners, to explore these stories further, to find the ones that resonate with you, and to see how they might spark your own journey of self-discovery and awakening.
Remember, the path to enlightenment is not a destination. It's a journey of unfolding awareness. And these stories can be your companions along the way. May they guide you toward greater peace, clarity, and fulfillment in your own life.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We look forward to exploring more fascinating topics with you in the